Welcome to the new episode of Prague Meets, and today we're meeting the UK. We are gonna keep it nice and light for this episode, even though we will have to address one not so humorous thing. Fun fact about me, I actually studied British history in the university. Shout out to my professor, and I hope you're not watching this video because I'm gonna embarrass myself, even though you're probably used to that. And we are starting in the Middle Ages with this handsome fella. His name is Charles IV, and he was one of the greatest, if not the greatest, Bohemian kings in the Czech history. Charles IV had a daughter, Anne of Bohemia, who was married to the King of England, Richard II. You can take a look at the candid shot of a couple. Richard married Anne despite the wishes of his parliament and nobility. Anne's arrival to England was surrounded by many strange events. For example, her arrival was delayed by the storms, and then as soon as she set her foot on English soil, her ships crashed into bits. She also brought no dowry with her. I know, scandalous. In fact, Richard had to pay a certain sum of money to Anne's brother, Wenceslas IV, to ask for her hand, and Wenceslas, being the entrepreneurial type, held Richard's negotiating team for ransom somewhere around here. Czech business. Now we are transporting to 16th century, the time of another cultural boom in the Czech lands during the reign of Rudolf II, a contemporary of another famous monarch, Elizabeth I. The Virgin Queen was very curious what was going on at the court of the Holy Roman Emperor in Prague, and knowing his love for strange things and people, sent two of her spies here, Alchemists John Dee and Edward Kelly. Now, there's a lot to say about this pair. Crystal ball readings, speaking to angels, and general monetary schemes, that was mainly Edward Kelly. John Dee, the more rational of the pair, was taking care of communication with the Queen, as well as making sure that the next party led by Kelly doesn't turn into some demonic ritual that would attract too much attention. Surprisingly, it was Edward Kelly who got closer to Rudolf II, and John Dee ended up coming back to England, where he died in poverty after falling out of favor with the new king, James I, because he was deemed a heretic. Funny coming from a guy who wrote a book about demonology. We've covered the fate of Edward Kelly in this video, but while you are in Prague, you can pay a visit to the tower where his alchemist's laboratory was located. Perhaps the most famous English Czech person is a lady who is buried in the St. Thomas Church in the lesser town of Prague. Her name was Elizabeth Jane Weston, and she's considered to be the first Czech female poet. She was also the daughter-in-law of Edward Kelly. It's all connected, you guys. If you find her tombstone in the St. Thomas Church, you will discover a familiar, for Harry Potter fans, plant on it. Yes, that's the mandrake plant. You remember the one that was screaming when they were taking them out of the pots? And just to circle it back to James I, he was supposed to help the Czech Protestant nobility when Europe was at the brink of the 30 Years' War. I'm afraid there was an even bigger oopsie-daisy when it comes to Czech-British relations. This is the photo of the Munich's agreement, during which the fate of Czech lands was decided by Italy, Britain, France, and Germany before Second World War. Guess who was missing from the negotiations? Any Czech person. Even though France and Great Britain were supposed to be the allies of Czechoslovakia, they decided to sacrifice it to Adolf Hitler in order to save peace in Europe. Spoiler, it did not work out. So in 1938, Hitler takes the Sudetenland and a year later invades the rest of the country. In Great Britain, Czech and Slovak soldiers are training. You might have heard some of their names because of the Operation Anthropoid that we've covered on our channel before. Others take part in the Battle of Britain. A very famous event, I'm sure you've heard about this one as well. But some British people are surprised to find out that a lot of those pilots who fought on their side were actually Czech and Slovak. You might have heard the name Josef František, a brave pilot who shot down 17 planes while fighting on the British side. In Prague, we have a memorial that was a gift of the British community. It was unveiled by Nicholas Soames, grandson of Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill is obviously a hugely important figure in the Czech history, because he was the one who criticized the policies and the decision of Neville Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister, to sacrifice Czech lands to Adolf Hitler. Winston Churchill correctly predicted that after the Sudetenland would be given to Hitler, the whole country will soon be engulfed in the Nazi regime. When talking about Second World War history, we cannot forget the heroic deed of a British broker, Sir Nicholas Winton, who managed to rescue 669 kids from the war-torn Czechoslovakia. If you haven't heard about this, maybe you've stumbled upon this viral clip from the British show That's Life, where 50 years later Sir Nicholas was reunited with dozens of those children and their families in the audience. That was a tearjerker. Imagine we would forget to include this monument in our today's video, the John Lennon Wall. We've done a whole video about John Lennon Wall and covered its past and present history, but to make it short, this was a protest wall during the times of communism. It was hugely important during the Velvet Revolution, and nowadays it's more of a monument to the freedom of speech. You can actually come here and leave your messages, but you cannot use spray paint. I know it doesn't look like it, but we go into the weeds of why in our longer video, so you can check it out. And let's finally talk about Britain and Czech Republic today. I've met thousands of British people on my tours, and I definitely can say that you guys are pretty self-aware. You know why you are coming here, and you know that sometimes you need to come here a couple times because the first one is usually a blur. But let's not turn it into a shame fest in the comments, okay? Have you seen how much is a pint of beer in Britain? No wonder they need to fly out. Prague is remaining one of the top destinations for British stag and hen parties, which is why I have this very nice hair accessory. I originally wanted to opt for a costume of a or of a but I couldn't find my size. Okay, I'll take it off. And just when we were editing this video, this news came out. Prague 1, the city center, wants to ban outrageous costumes often worn by tourists during stag or hen parties. Not sure how the British tourists will live without those beloved fashion choices. Do you guys think that Prague 1 should ban the costumes worn by stag or hen parties? Or should they just let people have fun? Let us know in the comments, and we will see you in our next video. Bye!